Hey, what's up, guys? Brad here. So, welcome to the second edition of Top Stocks Robinhood Investors Are Buying. So, I did this last Friday. I'm going to do it every Friday. So, this is a list of the most popular stocks within the last week, May 23rd to May 29th, that Robinhood investors are buying. So, let's go through this list, and I just want to share my thoughts on what I think about these stocks as investments. So the top one is Spirit Airlines, okay? Market cap just below $1 billion. You see the high and the low price, that's for 2020, okay? So we're still pretty far down there in the range this year. Now, there's four super investors who own Spirit Airlines, at least who owned it as of the first quarter of 2020. The earnings yield is 8.1%. That's actually decent, but you got to remember the earnings yield is based on earnings for the last reported quarter, which didn't have a lot of the current situation that's facing the airlines built into that earnings figure. So I'm sure it's probably negative at this point. So return on invested capital. These are two metrics that I got from the Magic Formula by Joel Greenblatt. These are the two criteria that he uses to build that screen. So this is a measure of how cheap a company is, and this is a measure, return on invested capital is a measure of how good a company is. And then this Value Investors Club, that was also started by Joel Greenblatt, and basically investors submit investment ideas and only the best ones get selected and shared on that website. And so, I like to look and see which companies actually have investment thesis write-ups on Value Investors Club. It's a great way to kind of quickly get, a sense of what a great investor is seeing in a given investment opportunity like these companies. So you can see there was a write-up for Spirit on April of 2018. A little outdated. Obviously, a lot has happened, even in the last 3 months, but certainly in the last 2 years. But still, it gives you a good sense of, what a really good investor is looking at in terms of Spirit's business model. What are the couple things that really move the needle in terms of whether or not the stock is a good investment? So I'm a big fan of Value Investors Club. But anyway, with that overview aside, Spirit, the main thing I'm going to say about Spirit is I'm very concerned about airlines in general at this time. I think it could be 2 or 3 years before anyone is willing to sit in the middle seat on an airplane. And if airlines aren't making money from the middle seats, a lot of them aren't going to be making any money at all. Like the profit margins in airlines tend to be very thin, okay? And right now, there's very few people flying. And so these airlines are losing a ton of money every day, every week, every month, in the meantime, until things get, back to normal in terms of people flying. So I'm not going to touch airlines with a 10-foot pole. So it's interesting, though, that the top stock that Robinhood investors are buying in the last week is an airline. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about why that is. You can see 4 super investors own it. Now, they each own, it's less than 1% of their total portfolio. So it's a small stake. So yeah, that's what I'll say about Spirit. Disney, number 2. I'm actually really intrigued by Disney. I know basically all of my family members have I believe it's called Disney Plus through Verizon, so they can watch it on their iPhones. And I don't have it, but they all jumped through some hoops to get it. They were really excited to get Disney Plus, and so I know there's a lot of people that are jumping into that. There is a write up from November of 2019, and I took a quick peek at that. And why don't I just pop that open right now, just so you guys can see. So the investment thesis here is this investor thinks that Disney is going to be at 300 in the next 4 years. Okay. And usually people who do these write-ups tend to be somewhat bullish on the stock. So, I would probably be a little bit more conservative than $300 in 4 years. But let's assume it's going to hit $300 in 4 years. Right now it's at 117. So what is that? Like 3.5x, a little less than 3.5 times in about 3.5 times in 4 years. So that's not as exciting as investment opportunities that I'm looking for. In 4 years, I'd be looking at a 4 or 5x in order to be interested in purchasing the company. So, at 117, I'm not super interested. Of course, I may dive deeper into Disney and find that 117 is actually a compelling price, and that my value for Disney is actually higher than 300 in 4 years. I haven't valued Disney, but getting down to 85, the low probably in March of 2020. That's looking more interesting, quite frankly. So Disney is on my list of companies to value, particularly if it gets down below $100 in the near future. So I'm intrigued by Disney. MGM, casino resorts, mostly in Las Vegas. You can see, they had a pretty steep drop there from high to low, which makes sense. I mean, there's nobody going to casinos right now. So earnings have pretty much gone to zero. The earnings yield, you can see, is pretty low at 4%. 2 super investors own MGM. And there is a write-up from July of 2018. So, yeah, MGM could be an interesting play. Airlines, hotels, cruise ships, it's hard for me to get excited about any of those industries right now, just because there's so much uncertainty about how long it's going to take for people to start using airlines and cruise ships and hotels en masse again. So, it's an interesting play. Curious, what a reasonable valuation would be for it. But I'm not super interested at this point. Number 4 on the list, DraftKings. So this is an online gambling platform, as far as I can tell. And there's no earnings. It's in startup mode. They're losing money. But it's basically done a 4x in, I think, just the last 2 months. Okay, so this is a hot stock right now. But to me, it seems very speculative. I don't know what the moat is for DraftKings in the online gambling space. I don't know how easy it would be for someone else to come into that space and compete with DraftKings. So that's something I definitely want to know if I were going to buy this stock. This little guy froze. Let me try to get this back up. Yep, there I am. Okay, let's continue on. So, DraftKings, interesting, way too speculative for me. This one is Genius Brands. So this is like an entertainment company for kids. Okay, you can see 117 million. It is a tiny company. It is very small. Anything basically under 250 million, and you're not going to see any super investors owning it. It's just too small. So I don't know much about this one. You can see from the low to the current price, it's up 10x. So, a lot of volatility in that stock, probably partly because it's such a small company. But I'm not interested. There's no earnings. It's a very speculative play, but intriguing nonetheless, considering it's number 5 on what Robinhood investors are buying in the last week. We have Delta Airlines. Again, same thing with the airlines. It's down 3x from high to low in 2020. But I mean, I have a hard time thinking the airlines, even at current prices, are going to be a good investment. Just because there's so much uncertainty about how long it's going to take for airlines to get back up and running. And even if they're going to make it through, if they're going to make it to when the economy gets back to normal, because they have so much debt, they have such a high burn rate right now in terms of cash that they're spending just to stay in business. It's a pretty scary situation. Obviously, Buffett sold out of airlines, and he did it for those reasons. Canopy Growth. This is a cannabis play. We had a few cannabis companies in the last top 10 stocks that Robinhood investors are buying that I did last Friday. Again, no earnings. I think they're spending an incredible amount of money every month to grow this business. And the big thing about cannabis, I just don't know who's going to come out a winner, right? Back when the internet was starting, back in the late 90s, you guys, there were a ton of internet companies. And if you had picked Google, obviously you would have made a killing. But, there were so many other internet companies that just went bust, right? And so it's the same situation in cannabis as I see it, where, there are a lot of players and there are only going to be a few winners. And nobody knows who those winners are going to be. I certainly don't. So, I think cannabis is probably going to be a great industry. For me, it's too early. It's too speculative at this point. I want to wait a little bit longer to see, okay, who are the likely winners, right? I mean, if you had waited to invest in Google, even say after like 5 years or so that Google was in business, you still would have done very well. So I think there's still plenty of time to wait to see who rises to the top in cannabis before buying those companies that clearly have a competitive advantage. So I'm waiting on cannabis. Remark Holdings. So this seems to be an AI, an artificial intelligence play on kind of content creation for businesses, for websites, that sort of thing. But I couldn't tell. I tried to look up Remark Holdings, and what I got, it seemed like a bunch of buzzwords. So I don't really know what they do. You can see there's a ton of volatility in the stock, a low of 27 cents. Today's price was up 235. So, like a 10x, almost a 10x from the low to today. But again, I don't know what they do. I'm quite confused about that. So obviously I'm not interested if I don't understand the business. CCL, Carnival Cruise Lines. Again, huge drop you can see here. What is that, like an 8x drop, 7x drop from high to low in 2020. Two super investors own this one. Earnings yield is certainly not 12.8% now. Like I said, this is from the last full quarter of earnings, which have taken a big hit since then. Cruise lines, I mean, it could be a great investment, guys. It could be a fabulous investment. There's a lot of people who love their cruises, right? There's a large cohort of people who are devoted cruisers. So, could be an interesting play. It's hard to imagine when people are going to be getting back on cruise ships, considering one of the big industries where, the current pandemic kind of started. At least there was a ton of attention on the cruise lines, people being stuck on these cruise ships. So I don't know, maybe that stigma, maybe that is going to last for a couple of years before people are comfortable getting back on these cruise ships. I just don't know. This goes in my too hard basket. I just don't know how long it's going to take. And obviously they're burning a ton of cash as well until things get back up and running with these cruise lines. And then finally, Amazon. So Amazon is a great business, right? Jeff Bezos is one of the best CEOs ever. Now, just because it's a great business doesn't mean it's a great investment at any price, okay? So price is really important here. And you can see, I mean, it's pretty close to the all-time highs. I think it hit an all-time high within the last month. I think it hit this almost $2,500 per share. Now, there is a write-up from March of 2020. And this person, valued Amazon and kind of gave a sum of the parts value for Amazon around 1.5 trillion. Okay, so based on that, there's about a 25% upside, even at today's price for Amazon. Now, a 25% upside isn't very compelling for me. If Amazon captures that upside within the next year, it's a 25% return. You guys, I want to double my money in 2 or 3 years, okay? So I'm pretty sure I can't do that with Amazon. At least I can't do it safely with Amazon. There's a lot of downside potential when you're paying such a high price for a company, when you have a 1.1% earnings yield. So you're basically paying $100 today to get $1 back this year, right? I just can't justify paying that kind of price for a great company, no matter how great the company is. The price is far too high for me. If it gets back down to 1,500, it probably needs to get down to 1,500 for me to start looking at Amazon. So it's probably just not going to be something that I own, which is unfortunate because it's a great business. But there are too many other more compelling opportunities than Amazon. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of super investors who own it. Berkshire Hathaway owns it. But, I don't think there's too many super investors buying at this price. I will say that. So that's all I got, guys. I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on the top 10 stocks that Robinhood investors have bought in the last week. I'm going to do this every Friday. So if you like this video, please smash that thumbs up button. I've made a video every day for the last 67 days. 66 days. And I'm definitely going to do 100 days in a row of making a video every day. So if you appreciate, that commitment, please hit that subscribe button and join me on that journey. That's all I got, guys. Let me know what you think of these stocks in the comments. If you're buying any of them, or if any of them have piqued your interest because of this video. All right, guys, that's all I got. Take care. I will see you in the next video.